Welcome to this episode of the Medical Affairs Professional Society podcast series, Elevate, gathering the voices of medical affairs thought leaders and stakeholders to explore current trends, define best practices, and empower the medical affairs function. Opinions are those of the presenters and do not imply endorsement by their organizations. I'm your host, Garth Sundem, Communications Director at MAPS, and today we'll be speaking with Luca Dezzani, Franchise Head Immuno-Oncology, AstraZeneca, and Bruno LARVOL, CEO and founder of LARVOL, about the emerging uses of social media in the practice of medical affairs. This podcast is made possible by LARVOL. LARVOL has been accelerating decision-making since 2004 by providing real-time, customized competitive intelligence software with data-driven analytics to the pharmaceutical, biotech, and healthcare industries. LARVOL's comprehensive KOL monitoring solution, Omni, ensures that MSLs stay ahead of the competition with in-depth updates on their KOL's activity. Omni also makes it easy for MSLs to prepare for and track engagements with their KOLs by providing access to publications, clinical trial involvement, social media posts, and upcoming conference participation. So Bruno, Luca, welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. I wanted to start out, I think that medical affairs in general is fairly comfortable with the idea of social media being used as a listening tool. But now we are starting to evolve beyond listening. And I'd love to hear, Bruno, do you mind starting just by talking about what are some of the emerging uses of social media beyond listening?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I want to say is that we are still very, very early, in my opinion. The pandemic is accelerating things, obviously, but a lot of our customers are still, I would say, exploring how to do more than listening. So right now they're learning to listen actively, and especially to use social media to identify opportunities for engagement. For example, at webinars and symposium, podcasts, grand rounds online. And they're looking at how to engage in a way that would be compliant, and they're trying to figure it out. Right now, I would say overall, pharma, medical affairs do not engage very much, as far as I can tell. And they're trying to figure out what is the right etiquette, what is the right rules to do it in a way that would be compliance friendly.
Oh, that's interesting. So do you see, and maybe Bruno, do you see compliance as the major hurdle to moving beyond listening, or is it the vision to know how to use these tools beyond listening?
It is. That's right. It's both, and sometimes compliance is a bit of an excuse for maybe the medical affairs professionals. Luca is very, very engaged, but many medical affairs professionals and MSLs are a little bit less maybe oriented towards engagement to start with in social media. And so part of it is compliance, and sometimes that's a good point. Compliance may be an excuse for not engaging. And I think it's going to change. It's changing slowly. I think it's going to change. But even we were surprised in oncology, for example, the number of KOLs that are active, really engaged in, let's say, Twitter, is still small. It's still a very small subset of key opinion leaders. Now we call them digital opinion leaders. So both with MSLs and medical affairs professional and with KOL, we're still early, I would say.
Okay. Well, so listeners, if you don't already follow Luca Dezzani on LinkedIn, you should go do that, because Luca, I see you as someone who personally is pushing forward in their innovative use of social media in medical affairs. So could you tell us a little bit about, either your personal use or organizational use of social media right now? What is beyond passive listening for you?
Yeah, I think there are amazing opportunities. And as I completely agree with Bruno, I think we are really only scratching the surface for the time being. In terms of organizational use, companies are establishing a thought leadership in medical affairs, in particular, is definitely a good tool, a good way of attracting talents, right? So in pharma, obviously, we are always looking for the brightest minds, and in medical affairs, we want to attract, talented people, very often from science, from academia, or from other companies, right? So if we manage to establish our medical affairs organization as a thought leader in the space, we are going to be much more attractive to people who are interested in exploring career opportunities with our company, with our organization. That's one point.
Okay.
In terms of personal use, obviously, it's kind of the flip side of what I just described, right? So if I am an MSL who is looking for, again, career opportunities, it's good for me to be visible on social media. It's good to establish myself as a thought leader in the medical engagement space. So that's another point. And more on the business side, if I am very active, let's say, on social media regarding real world evidence, right? Because that's the topic I'm passionate about. And I constantly produce content regarding RWE. It's likely that someone, in terms of key opinion leaders, investigators, may one day reach out to me because they have an idea, a proposal regarding a collaboration on real world evidence, and they know that I am passionate about the topic. I know a lot about the topic. I have been publishing on social and posting on my social channels regarding RWE. So I'm also able to attract potential opportunities for collaboration.
Well, so that's really interesting, because I think, we think of social media as a way to track down thought leaders, but you're saying that you can become a thought leader. And there's advantages, professionally and even to your organization, of you being a thought leader.
Exactly. And I think on top of that, there are other avenues that, again, we are really only starting to explore. I have some experience, for instance, running medical education programs on social media, and on Twitter in particular. And medical education, something I often say, just to illustrate my point, if you have in mind the model of TikTok or YouTube, so you have this constant stream of content, right? You watch a video, and when the video ends, the next one starts right away, and so on and so forth. Right? It's an endless stream of content, and the more you watch it, the more the algorithm learns what you like and what you don't like, because you skip those videos, right? So when you don't like something on TikTok, you skip it, right? And you move on. So the algorithm learns what I am interested in, and it customizes my feed to what I'm interested and what it's relevant to me. So I see medical affairs becoming more and more able to address physicians' needs, educational needs, just by leveraging data and learning more about what is relevant to our stakeholders. I would love to see that kind of automation and machine learning happening in medical affairs, as we see on TikTok or YouTube.
Well, and in that case, it's almost like you become the algorithm, right? Like you're learning how to serve relevant content to your audience. And so, you are broadcasting relevant content through your LinkedIn. Well, okay. So these are the emerging uses. Now, I follow you, Bruno, on Twitter, and Luca, I follow you on LinkedIn, and I find that your voices are very different. So I wonder, how should medical affairs professionals be presenting themselves online in social media? Bruno, you're pretty informal. How do you feel about the voice of your social media representing you and representing your organization?
Yeah. So I have an approach that perhaps is just for me, or perhaps is for other people as well, is that I have decided not to make a difference between the professional and the personal side of who I am. So by nature, I would post on Twitter, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and I would really be the same person essentially, and not sort of compartmentalize the audience. Now, some people don't want to do that, and some people even advise not to do it. But I feel that it's too unnatural for me to be one person on Twitter and a very different person on Facebook. And so I essentially said, well, I'm going to be the same person. I'm going to be informal. I'm going to talk about myself as well. And that works for me. I'm not saying it works for everybody, but I do suspect that that social media forces us a little bit in being ourselves, in being authentic. And it becomes harder and harder to compartmentalize. And in my mind, it's a good thing, because the standards of professionalism are evolving. And I think they're evolving towards unifying the different components of who we are.
Well, so that comes from the perspective, I mean, you're the CEO of your organization. Are there compliance issues for medical affairs professionals who are not the CEOs of their organization? How, if you're not the CEO, or even if you are, how can you engage as yourself in social media and still be compliant within your organization, either or both of you?
I think the compliance piece is super important, right? I really want to emphasize how important it is for anyone, unless, to your point, you are the CEO, and of course you can really speak on behalf of your organization if you want to, but if you are not the CEO, or in general, right, what you really want to stay away from is you don't want to speak on behalf of your organization, unless of course you have the green light from the company to do so. So that's the most important point, and it's really important that we partner with our legal and compliance colleagues, also because rules and regulations are very different. If you think of the privacy regulations in Europe, much more strict, and even social media listening, there are limitations in many countries in Europe, a little different in the US. So it's really a very complex matter. So I guess my encouragement is always to check with the experts and make sure that what we are doing is appropriate. But again, the key is always the key concept in my mind is always making very clear that what you are expressing on social media is your personal views, again, unless this is part of a program that has been agreed upon with the organization.
Okay. And is that intrinsically understood by an organization? So if you, as a medical affairs professional, decide to start a Twitter account and start tweeting, is it assumed that you are expressing only your own opinion, or do you need to involve your organization from the start in some sort of approval of your activities?
I can start, but Bruno, please chime in. I think I wouldn't assume anything. I would rather double check, maybe. Again, depending on where you are where you are located, depending on your company, depending on a variety of different factors. It may not be an issue at all, and or it you may have some restrictions, right? You may have some guidelines to follow. So again, I'm not a compliance expert, and I don't want to speak for the experts. I think my encouragement is always to check with your appropriate colleagues within the organization and make sure you are doing the right things.
The other thing for me, for example, I decided personally not to talk politics, right? Because or sometimes I'm also restraining a little bit some jokes I want to make, because you're right. If you work if you in social media, both at the personal and professional level, there is sensitivity you have to be conscious of. Yeah. So I decided to make sure that whatever I post, nobody could guess my political views. Otherwise, it could create some challenges in general. So I decided to self-impose certain limits to what I'm going to talk about.
That makes a lot of sense. Well, and it seems like so much social media is it's sort of an ecosystem of smaller communities, right? That gather or coalesce around different topics. And, I wonder if, in addition to opportunities for using social media kind of as tools to get what we want in medical affairs, to learn, to listen, to create insights, to create relationships, I wonder if there is also an opportunity, and I see this in both of your social profiles, to create more of a medical affairs community that's been lacking. What do you think about that?
Well, I would just say that there is a great opportunity, and some of the work that Luca and others are doing, whether it's on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and now maybe on Clubhouse, actually, is going in that direction. And I don't want to flatter Luca too much here, but the kind of profile he is building and how he's using social media to communicate with people in the medical affairs community, to create value, is a way people are going to build profiles and professional profiles in the industry, and is going to be increasingly important in careers. I have no doubt that down the road, people who want to build a successful career need certainly to be actively listening to the conversation on social media, because a lot of their learning is going to come from that, but will also engage with leadership in that conversation. And so, obviously, I'm on the vendor side, so it's a little bit different, but Luca is a great example of someone who is doing that so well.
Okay, I'll bite. Tell me, what in the world is Clubhouse? And Luca, what is next beyond that?
So just one quick word. We will send you an invite on Clubhouse.
Oh, good.
Now, by the way, I got Luca on, I think, I'm the one who got Luca on TikTok. So he's now on TikTok. No. And Clubhouse is growing nearly faster than TikTok. It's incredible. It's essentially Twitter audio only. It's actually like a spontaneous podcast with 1 million voice and rooms with mini podcasts organized in a semi-impromptu way. Okay. And we'll send you an invite.
Send me an invite. That sounds great. Well, okay, so this is what's next. I mean, people get comfortable with Twitter, and I'm sure we're all comfortable with LinkedIn. But social media, it seems like we're talking about the emerging uses of social media as if those emerging uses will emerge and then we will use them. But if anything is constant in social media, it may be that things continue to emerge that we continue to have to wrap our heads around. Closing thoughts on that, Luca?
Yeah, I think it's key. It's really key that we join forces when it comes to exploring social media in medical affairs. And that's why I think, we cannot do even something like social media listening. You need to have the right platform, right? Whether you leverage LARVOL or another platform, you need to partner with the people that have the capabilities and the companies that have the capabilities to make it happen. And I'm using social listening as an example, but the same applies to medical education. Twitter chats are becoming more and more popular. You need the right vendors and the right capabilities to run Twitter chats in medical affairs. And I think, just one final thought. I think what we haven't seen yet is the disruptive innovation. We haven't seen the Netflix of medical affairs yet. Is that going to happen? When it's going to happen, I don't know. But I think we are incrementally improving the way we do medical affairs, the way we leverage social media, new technologies and digital technologies in medical affairs. We are still waiting for the big disruption, right? We are really waiting for the disruptive innovation that will take medical affairs really to the next level when it comes to digital transformation. That's my assumption.
All right. Well, the digital innovators who are listening to this, I encourage you to get in touch with Bruno and Luca, and I'm sure that you will have some interesting collaborative discussions. So thanks, Bruno and Luca, for joining us today. MAPS members, you can continue the conversation at our community portal. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast. We hope you have enjoyed this episode of the Medical Affairs Professional Society podcast series, Elevate.